Most Marvel fans know Cable as a tough guy from the Deadpool movie or the animated shows, but only comic book fans know Strife, Cable's clone who was abducted by Apocalypse to be molded into his ultimate vessel. Since Cable is an Omega-level mutant, Strife shares the same immense powers, but uses them for evil, driven by a lust for power and a tragic past that turned him into a minion of chaos. You could say that Strife had a truly tragic history and was never really given a chance to live a good life, and once he grew older, he became the harbinger of chaos. So in this video, we will explore the anatomy of Strife and the things he can and cannot do. But before that, I'd quickly run you through his origin because it is important if we're to explore his body. I mean, in a platonic sense, of course. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Who is Strife? Strife's story begins with his origin as a clone of Nathan Christopher Summers, the son of X-Man, Scott Summers aka Cyclops, and the Goblin Queen, better known as Madeline Pryor Summers, in a future ruled by the mutant genetic overlord Apocalypse. Mother Ascani, also known as Rachel Summers, led a group called the Ascani cult dedicated to opposing Apocalypse. In this dire future, the Ascani needed a warrior who could stand against Apocalypse. Mother Ascani sent Sister Ascani, aka Jen, who sacrificed her physical form and became pure energy, back to the time of the X-Men. At that moment, Apocalypse's Riders of the Storm were trying to kidnap baby Nathan Summers. Although X-Factor managed to rescue Nathan, they discovered that Apocalypse had infected him with a deadly techno-organic virus that was spreading rapidly through his body. Sister Ascani convinced Cyclops to let her take baby Nathan to the far future where advanced medical technology could save him, but there was a catch though. Cyclops would never see his son again. After Nathan was taken to the future, the technicians quickly alerted Mother Ascani about his condition. They discovered that an electromagnetic field along with the remains of X-Factor's ship was keeping Nathan alive. Fearing that the techno-organic virus would soon overwhelm him, Mother Ascani ordered a clone to be made. The clone grew rapidly to match Nathan's age, and the Ascani managed to limit the clone's infection by the virus. Contrary to their initial fears, Nathan began to recover. Just then, the Canaanites attacked the base. Mother Ascani told Boak to save the children, but he could only carry one before the Canaanites broke in, seemingly killing Mother Ascani. Apocalypse soon arrived and took the other children, mistakenly believing him to be the original Nathan Summers. In reality, he had taken the clone. Apocalypse decided to raise the clone as his own, planning to transfer his essence into the child's body once he grew too weak to continue in his own. Apocalypse raised the clone and named him Strife. As Strife grew up, Apocalypse nurtured his arrogance and cruelty. Shivairi, Apocalypse's aide, was tasked with watching over Strife and had mixed feelings about the boy's growing malevolence. When he was 8, Strife crossed paths with Nathan, who now went by Dayspring, and was fighting against Apocalypse's rule with a clan rebellion. The two fought and Nathan defeated Strife, who was taken away by Shivairi to recover. Years later, when Apocalypse tried to transfer his mind into Strife, he learned that the boy was just a clone. Shivairi wanted to protect Strife, betrayed Apocalypse. With the help of Nathan and his parents Cyclops and Jean Grey, they destroyed Apocalypse, sparing Strife. After that, Strife and Shivairi went into hiding. New dictators, the new Canaanites, and the scions of Apocalypse took over. Learning he was a clone and being rejected by Apocalypse pushed Strife to the brink of insanity. Why is Strife an Omega-level clone? Strife, as Cable's clone, possesses the same Omega-level powers. This makes him a dangerous adversary. Unlike Cable, who uses a portion of his powers to hold back the techno-organic virus, Strife can fully harness his abilities for all the evil things he wants to do, holding no bars. This makes his telekinesis and telepathy even more powerful than Cable's. You see, Rachel Summers once told Cable that he had the power to extinguish a star with a stray thought, so Strife had the same level of power. And as I just said, he does not have to use a bit of his powers to check the spread of the techno-organic virus. Strife's telepathy ranks just behind Professor X and Jean Grey, which allows him to create illusions and hide himself. Yet powerful telepaths can still detect and counter his mental abilities. One of his notable talents is Mind Trap, which lets him trap someone in their own mind, thereby rendering them helpless. He can also communicate through his astral form. A unique power of Strife is his psionic blast. While it doesn't affect the physical body directly, it can inflict severe mental damage, leaving victims unconscious or even dead. As an adopted son of Apocalypse, Strife has the ability to transfer his consciousness into a host body, but is yet to master this. Strife's telekinesis is advanced enough to lift massive weights using only his mind. The exact limits of his abilities aren't known, but rest assured, he is a force to be reckoned with and then some more. Overall, Strife's potential makes him a strong candidate for a major MCU villain, much on the lines of Onslaught, Apocalypse, Sinister, and dare I say, Doctor Doom. He created a virus that could wipe out the entire mutant race. Is he that smart? In the present day, Strife handed Mr. Sinister a canister, claiming it held 2,000 years worth of Summers family genetic material. However, when Sinister scientist Gordon Lefferts opened the canister after Strife seemingly died at Cable's hands, they found it empty. But it was more than just empty. The canister released Strife's so-called legacy upon the world, the legacy virus. In fact, it was actually based on the same virus that Apocalypse had once built to eradicate the human race from the face of the Earth. The Earth where he ruled with an iron fist and ensured the arrival of mutant supremacy. The Legacy virus initially had two variants, Legacy 1 and Legacy 2, but later mutated into a third form, Legacy 3. All were airborne and sought out mutants by identifying their X gene, the mutant gene sequence that grants their powers. If the virus didn't detect the gene, it simply died off without affecting the person. But if it did find a gene, it started altering the victim's mutant RNA by inserting junk DNA sequences into it. This process disrupted the victim's ability to create healthy cells, a condition that got triggered once they used their powers for the first time after getting infected. The virus was ultimately fatal to mutants, and once infected, the mutant could never recover from the cellular damage. Legacy 1 wreaked havoc on all cells, much like a fast-spreading wildfire, and that's what infected Ilyana Rasputin, Colossus's sister. Poor girl eventually died. Legacy 2, however, was closer to Strife's original plan and targeted only the mutant X gene. It was slower in its onset and caused symptoms like skin lesions, fever, cough, and weakness, as seen in the telepathic X-Men Revanche. Unlike Legacy 1, Legacy 2 led to gradual loss of control over powers, which is why mutants like Pyro managed to live for years after being infected. Legacy 3 was created by chance in the body of Infectia, who was a mutant whose powers let her visualize and manipulate genetic structures. When she contracted the Legacy virus, her body fought to keep it at bay, and her immune defense system accidentally altered the Legacy 2 strain. The mutation removed the virus's specificity to mutants, letting it infect any hominid. When Henry McCoy, aka Beast, opened Infectious Chamber, her new free agent strain was released, which was capable of infecting any complex organism like humans, canines, felines, and not just mutants. Who is more powerful, Cable or Strife? Strife, driven by a desire for revenge, posed as Cable and attempted to assassinate Professor Xavier after infecting him with a techno-organic virus. He then manipulated Mr. Sinister into kidnapping Scott Summers and Jean Grey in exchange for Summers' family genetic material. He then headed to Bani Maza, Egypt, where he woke Apocalypse from his rejuvenation chamber and defeated him by stabbing him with a sword that Strife claimed was once used against him. Next thing we know, Strife started to believe that he was, in fact, the real Nathan Summers and blamed Cyclops and Jean Grey for abandoning him as a child. And for that supposed mistake, he tortured them on Apocalypse's moon base. When members of the X-Factor, X-Men, and X-Force arrived, Strife faced off against Cable in a final fight on the moon. They both fell through a time vortex which Cable created using technology from his arm. Cable emerged from the vortex alive while Strife's body was supposedly destroyed. Can he survive within someone else's body? Well, yes. After the scuffle that I was talking about, Strife did pull off something like this. You see, the similarities in their genetics and the electromagnetic flux allowed Strife to linger within Cable's body after Cable emerged from the time vortex, so basically, much like Apocalypse himself, Strife can also transfer his mind, powers, and consciousness into someone else's body should his own body get destroyed. Did he have any cybernetic augmentations? Well, no. Unlike Cable, he did not have any cybernetic augmentations, but that does not mean that he had nothing in his bag. He had what you call genetic augmentations. Thanks to Apocalypse's genetic tweaks, Strife was supercharged with some impressive physical powers, and it elevated many of his physical attributes to superhuman levels. His strength was impressive, so much so that he could lift around 10 tons with ease, which is similar to the strength that the X-Man Beast possesses. With telekinesis, he could push his strength even further. He could also move at speeds beyond the fastest human athletes. His stamina was equally remarkable, which allowed him to keep up peak activity for hours without tiring. I would not say that his body was a sink for incoming damage, but he could take a hit and could easily survive blows and impacts that could easily injure or kill a normal human. He could bolster his durability further by using his telekinesis to form a force field that protected him from bullets and energy attacks. In fact, his reflexes were heightened to levels superior to any human. How strong was his telepathy game? Strife's telepathy game was strong. He could read minds and project thoughts, but his abilities went far beyond that. He could create vivid illusions that made people believe they were experiencing events that weren't actually happening. With his telepathic cloak, he could mask himself from others and extend that protection to those around him. Despite his power, other highly skilled telepaths could sometimes detect or counter his abilities. He could create mental links with people and disguise his and others' appearances. He also had the ability to control minds and influence the thoughts and actions of others. Strife could imprison someone's mind within his own or possess their body to use as his own. He could alter minds, induce amnesia, and protect himself and others with strong psychic shields. Strife's psionic blasts were particularly deadly and affected the mind to cause pain, unconsciousness, or even death. So basically, although these blasts would not hurt you physically, they were still capable of causing you pain. He could travel on the astral plane, communicate with others astrally, and detect nearby mutants. Of course, I've already spoken about his mind and power transferability. If his body was destroyed, he could transfer his mind and powers to another host. And in addition to telepathy, Strife's telekinesis was also powerful. He could control objects, lift hundreds of tons, and even disassemble and reassemble complex devices. He could create protective force fields, blast his telekinetic energy with concussive force, and fly by levitating himself. What about the force fields he projected? Strife's force field could fend off even the strongest attacks. Not only that, he could filter out bacteria from the air. Now, that's something we could all have used during the damn pandemic, or maybe a bit of Logan's healing factor too. Nevertheless, the full extent of the force field's power is not known, but it is believed that it could withstand a nuclear blast at ground zero of a 1 kiloton nuclear warhead, which could produce nearly 4.18 terajoules of energy from the heat, concussion, and radiation effects. Strife could also control the field's shape with precision and could mold it to match his body's form perfectly. Now, this definitely makes him a sink for incoming damage. A master of astral projections. Strife's mastery of astral projections allowed him to travel in spirit form and communicate with others by will or by connecting with their thoughts and memories. On the astral plane, he could use his powers to create objects from ectoplasmic energy. Strife could move between different astral planes or stay within his own, making him a powerful presence beyond the physical world. Why does Strife look similar to Marvel's The Beyonder? Strife doesn't exactly resemble the Beyonder, who appeared in Avengers number 260 and rarely wore his battle armor, but there are similarities between the two that you just can't ignore. Created by Rob Liefeld, as a future version of Cable, Strife came to life in 1990. If you look at Liefeld's work with characters like Battalion and Bloodstrike of the Image Comics, you'll see a similar design style. Liefeld often borrowed elements from other characters, and his X-Force work closely mirrors themes from his later projects. Strife's introduction in New Mutants number 86 carries a resemblance to how Mr. Sinister was first presented in Uncanny X-Men number 221. Liefeld's penchant for spikes and dramatic armor is evident in Strife's design, which mirrors elements from Mr. Sinister in Apocalypse and X-Factor number 5. What would have happened if he was infected with a techno-organic virus? Well, you could expect a similar fate of Strife as Cable's if the former was infected with a techno-organic virus. However, Cable definitely is stronger, smarter, and more skilled as a man than Strife. So while Cable managed to keep the spread of the virus in check, I'm not entirely sure if Strife would have been able to do it. Furthermore, Strife is not the biological son of Cable, and the clones can only go so far when it comes to inheriting stuff. So yeah, that was all in this one. We've also covered the true origin of Strife from the epic 4-issue comic titled The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. If you like yourself a good mutant villain, I humbly suggest you check that one out. If you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.